Thank you for being here, and it is my pleasure to welcome today distinguished speakers from the Eastern Mediterranean on a panel dedicated to the Eastern Mediterranean region, which is a troubled region, and it gets more trouble as we have the war in Ukraine continuing. And as we move into thinking about energy alternative sources for Europe, and as we think about how the global balance of power is shifting. That said, I am going to start with a brief introduction of the panel. I have here with me Mr. Yossi MANN, head of the Israel and Arab Gulf program at the Abba Eban Institute from Israel. Mr. Mitat ÇELİKPALA, I hope that I am pronouncing it correctly, from Kadir University in Turkey. Mr. Symeon TSOMOKOS, founder and president of the Delphi Forum. And Mr. Andreas THEOPHANOUS, president of the Cyprus Center for European and International Affairs in Cyprus. That said, I think we have the perfect lineup to discuss about the regional challenges. So I'm going to start with a very broad question of how do you see to be the most important regional challenges from your own perspective, considering the country that you are coming from? And I'm going to open up with Mr. Yossi MANN just because I'm going with the same lineup that I have here. And then we'll go to the next speaker. So.
Okay, just a second. Open. So hi, good morning, and thank you for having me here in this very important panel. So obviously the Middle East is associated with problems, with challenges. But let me start with optimistic point of view. Actually, if you probably remember, all of you, that the last decade we started with the Arab Spring, and decade after we started with the Abraham Accords, and the Abraham Accords, like the Arab Spring, started from a country to country. In the Arab Spring, it started in Tunisia, then in Egypt, as you probably remember. And the same thing happening right now with the Abraham Accord. It started with Israel and the Arab Gulf countries, and you see more normalization, reconciliation between other states. For example, you probably saw recently the relations between Iran and Saudi Arabia, UAE with Turkey. You see the Arab Gulf with other states, Syria and Lebanon. So I have to start with that. I have to say that I'm quite optimistic regarding the situation in the Middle East, unlike what's happening right now in Europe. From the Israeli perspective, I would like to point 5 challenges, okay? And I will surprise you that we in Israel consider the first challenge as the climate change. We see more and more problems in our region because of the climate change. And I give you a few examples. I mentioned the Arab Spring. You probably remember that the Arab Spring actually started in Syria, for example, because of a drought that started in the northern part of Syria. We see more and more riots in the southern parts of Iraq because of high temperatures, and we are expecting for higher temperatures in this summer. People claim that it will be in Israel this summer, at least 2 days with 50 degrees, at least for 2 days in this summer. And there are, of course, problems because of climate change. There is less accessibility to water. We have problems with access to electricity. So we in Israel, and I'm talking on behalf of many agencies, we see the climate change as one of the crucial challenges, and it's unlike the past, it's immediate challenge. The second challenge is the economic situation worldwide that probably will impact the poor countries in the region. We have, of course, the rich countries, the wealthy countries in the Arab Gulf, but in our region, the East Mediterranean, we have several countries that will probably suffer from high inflation and higher interest rate. We'll take, for example, of course, Lebanon, Syria, Egypt, and of course, the Palestinian Authority. So since in the past, we used to that the rich countries supported the poor countries. But nowadays, this policy is changing. The rich countries refuse to just pour money to these poor states and demand reforms. So we see the economic situation as the second challenge. Obviously, the third challenge comes from our perspective, but I think it's a regional challenge, but also worldwide challenge, which is, of course, the Iranian issue. In the past, it was Israeli problem. People consider it as an Israeli problem, but now we see the result of the cooperation between Russia and Iran. We see the military cooperation and what it caused. From the Israeli perspective, there are few implications. First of all, it means that Iran is getting more weapons from Russia and have more agreement with Russia. And this weapon goes to organizations like, of course, Hezbollah and Islamic Jihad, but also it improved the capabilities of Iran in this region. This is a great challenge from the Israeli perspective. The fourth challenge is what is happening in the Palestinian Authority, of course. We can't ignore that Mahmoud Abbas, the president of the Palestinian Authority, is 88, and we don't have a successor. We don't know who will be the successor. People claim it will be Hamas instead of in the West Bank, of course. It will be Hamas that will take the power in the West Bank. We are not sure, because as you can see in some places in the Palestinian Authority, for example, you see in Nablus and other cities, that the young generation is taking control and not Hamas. They refuse to be under the control of Hamas. So in Israel, we're quite worried from the next, what will be after Mahmoud Abbas. And the fifth challenge is domestic problem. As you probably all know, we have, I would say, a political crisis in Israel. This crisis, it's, I would say, in my opinion, but many people will agree in Israel, it's the deepest crisis that we ever had, a social crisis. This crisis is influencing all agencies, the government and the society. We see conflict in the army, people from the military reserve refusing to join the reserve because of what they consider as a lack of democracy. So from the Israeli perspective, I would say that's the biggest challenge for the next year. I have my vision regarding what will be in 1 or 2 years, but that's the main point from my perspective, from the Israeli perspective. Thank you.
Thank you. So going from the broad, long-term strategic challenges of climate change, which I believe are pretty much, current, considering the drought problem, to the social, economic challenges in your country and in the region, which are tied together, I might say. So with that, we're going forward to Turkey. How is Turkey seeing the challenges in the region?
Of course, thank you, Antonia. It's my pleasure and honor to be here to discuss Turkey and, of course, Turkey-related issues. We will have a panel afternoon, I guess, or the next round on Turkey. But what about the challenges? First of all, I agree with Yossi that those global challenges are challenges for Turkey. And Turkey is a big country, one of the G20 member countries. It's a kind of a giant in the region, from north to south, east to west. And any economic, financial, and security-related issue are the issues of Turkey. And those are the challenges and, of course, opportunities for Turkey as well. And therefore, Turkey, from my perspective, I can say they try to be a kind of a security provider to those issues and try to keep its position as a balancer within the region, do not to take part or to be a center of all those disagreements and challenges. And this Russian invasion of Ukraine created a kind of a new political and security environment. And for the Western world, and Turkey is a NATO member country, negotiating partner to the EU, therefore those challenges for the EU and the transatlantic world are the challenges for Turkey as well. And if you look at the geographical position of the country, you may easily see that any kind of a threat from the east or threat from the south to EU or the transatlantic world are the threats for Turkey as well. And Turkey was the main actor facing with those challenges in the front. And therefore, the priority most probably, I may say that security-related issues are the issues or challenges for Turkey. And some of them, and Turkey was part of those challenges, try to resolve those issues, and at the end, one hand, and on the other hand, try to balance those challenges through establishing some better relations with the parties, warring parties or competing parties. Unfortunately, time to time, we are part of those challenges because of Turkey's interest and understanding, but we need to work and to discuss. From the East Med perspective, I may say that the war of Russian invasion of Ukraine created a kind of a de-escalation in the region, at least on the sea territories, sea-related issues, Mediterranean Sea-related issues. This is a good thing. It's a kind of a de-escalation between the parties. But from Turkey's perspective, if I may say, the Eastern Mediterranean at the heart, because the Black Sea-related issues are totally different than the Mediterranean issues, or what's happening in the Caucasus, or Turkish-Greek tug of war is another issue in the Aegean and other seas. But in the Eastern Mediterranean, we have much more balanced position. The main issue is, of course, I may say that the attitude of the regional actors to exclude Turkey in all those regional security schemes. It creates at least a kind of a geopolitical competition, and without having Turkey in those balances, it is impossible to create a new environment, a security and stability environment in the Eastern Mediterranean. But for Turkey, we have borders, unstable borders. What's happening in Syria, still in Iraq or Iran, are the issues that Turkey is trying to balance and to respond in a positive way. And from this perspective, I may say that to fight against terror, any kind of a terror, is still a priority for Turkey. And unfortunately, we do not have a region or regions, let me say, that's stable to deal with all those issues. And this exclusionary attitude is the priority, let me say. What about the others? Try to check my notes. And securing Turkey's energy interests. Those are the interests of the Europe as well. Since yesterday, I just joined at least 2 panels on energy-related issues, and the Europeans are still trying to find some extra or alternative ways to secure energy resources. Those are the same security threats for Turkey as well, and how to cooperate. For example, there is a huge potential for Turkey and Greece to work together and to be a kind of a hub altogether. This is the case for most probably for Israel, for Egypt, and for other Cyprus and other regional actors as well. The main challenges, I may say, how to bring the parties all together to discuss those issues together with Turkey and to offer our partner countries to offer a kind of a much more stable and secure environment. The lack of, dialogue with Turkey is the main limitation on those discussions, and that we have to think that Turkey is, again, I repeat myself, but a NATO member country, and you may easily find Turkey's signature on all those decisions and, policies in NATO as well, regarding Russia or the Black Sea-related issues. Lastly, and how to link those seas or regions of Turkey all together and to convince our partners that those are the threats for Turkey, and this is a package. You cannot separate one region to another, and you cannot separate Turkey's interests and attitude from the others, and this is the thing that I can say in the first round regarding Turkey's security challenges.
Thank you very much. Well, I think you very much synced with an idea that Yossi mentioned as well, the fragility of the borderlines. Which is basically a main feature in the Middle East, but now is spreading throughout the region in the Eastern Med as well. So security arrangements and the potential for Turkey to work with Greece. With that thought, what is the Greek perspective? Symeon?
Antonia, thank you very much. And actually, you are the one who brought us in touch with the new strategy center. I thank you deeply. This is why I'm here. We have a very dear relationship with them. They came to Delphi last April, and I hope that this relationship with the new strategy center will continue in the years to come. Of course, we speak about a troubled area as far as the politicians are concerned, because the people are extremely friendly. We have great relations with everyone. The main challenge of Greece, if I may say so, is that we keep this course of economic development that we have achieved these last years. As you all know, Greece suffered a huge economic crisis, the worst after the Second World War. But these last 4 or 5 years, we have managed to have an excellent administration, a course that has created a new environment in Greece. And I think this is our main challenge, that we continue on this important course. Greece is a stable democracy. We have now, next year, the 50 years since the restoration of democracy in Greece. We're a full member of NATO. We're a full member of the European Union. We try to bring closer to the European Union the Balkan countries, which is very important. I think there is a black hole in the European Union there, so that all these Western Balkans one day can become part of the European family, which is crucial for everyone, for Turkey, for all the region. So the challenges, the external challenges, I think, is, as the elephant in the room, of course, is the Greek-Turkish relations. I'm one who has done a lot about the Greek-Turkish business rapprochement back 30 years ago. Of course, Turkey at the time was different. Now it has 4 times bigger GDP than Greece. It has 8 times bigger population than what Greece has. So we definitely understand, I mean, you know, the size of Turkey these days. But on the other hand, we need, I think, to find a way of resolving the issues. And of course, we don't want to exclude Turkey from all these, you know, new arrangements that are taking place in regional. We have this 3+1, as you know, platform between the United States, between Egypt, Cyprus, and Greece, which is a platform that creates, you know, cooperation in many sectors of the economy, of energy as well. We would love to have Turkey in this, but I must admit we have to play with the same rules. I mean, I think we need to have the, you know, to respect the international law, the law of the sea, and I'm pretty sure that one day, perhaps the new governments, we have elections in Turkey, as you know, next Sunday. After, we have Greek elections coming tomorrow, and perhaps a second election on July 2nd for some internal reasons. So I hope, I wish that we find a way that the two parties, the two countries are getting together and find some ways, you know, to draft, if you like, the delimitation of the territorial water, see how we can work together on energy issues. I think energy cannot be a barrier. It can be, you know, an incentive for all of us that we work together in the region. And I must tell you, again, I would like to reiterate that I am one who strongly favors, you know, a rapprochement, a positive climate between Turkey and Greece.
That is a very optimistic view. Thank you very much. And with the thought of cooperation as an opportunity that our time is bringing forth, while elections are happening, it seems that in the region we've been in the election season for at least 1 year now, and we go on and on. With that in mind, I will want to ask the Cyprus perspective. We usually refer to the Cyprus issue and the Cyprus perspective when we discuss the Eastern Mediterranean challenges. So, Andreas, what are the old and new challenges for Cyprus today?
Thank you very much. I'm pleased to be here, first time in Bucharest. And it would be my pleasure to share views and perspectives in relation to the old and the new challenges of the Eastern Mediterranean. And, yes, and also to take into consideration the specific issues that Cyprus faces. Now, the Eastern Mediterranean, over time, it has been, and it is, an important region, and there is a strife of various powers over time to influence or even control it. Cyprus, which is at the heart of the Eastern Mediterranean, has been throughout times under the influence or control of the dominant powers over time. The Eastern Mediterranean is not a homogeneous area, so security challenges do not only come from foreign powers, security challenges are also come from within. From the Arab perspective, Israel is a threat. From the Israeli perspective, the Arabs are a threat. From our perspective, our problem has been Turkey, which does not recognize the sacred right of the Republic of Cyprus to exist. And since 1974, Turkey occupies almost 40% of the territory of Cyprus. And I want to spend one time to history and then come back forward. At the time, Cyprus was pursuing a non-aligned policy. And I would say in one way or another, Cyprus is a victim of the Cold War. President Makarios was overthrown by the Greek junta on 15th of July. 25 days later, Turkey invaded on the pretext of re-establishing the constitutional order and protecting the Turkish Cypriot minority community. 23rd of July, 3 days later, the junta in Athens collapsed, and the putschist regime collapsed in Nicosia. And if there were any excuses for the first Turkish intervention/invasion, after 23rd of July, there was none. The way we perceived what happened to the Cypriots who survived the time, for us, it remained as the way Germany treated Czechoslovakia before the Second World War. I mean, that's our perspective. And coming today about international law, against Cypriot perspectives, when we see the reaction of the international community towards Russian violations of international law with the invasion of Ukraine, Cypriots perceive that there is selective respect for international law. And in this regard, let me also say that the way the Cyprus problem is perceived and treated by strong powers, it's like it is as if it is a bicommunal issue and that the Turkey is a third power. Could somebody say that the Ukrainian issue is between the Russian-speaking Ukrainians and the Ukrainians, and Putin and Russia is a third party to the conflict? But that's the way we were treated in the case of Cyprus to the present day. Now, for us, so there is this double standard is not something which enhances peace and cooperation. Now, coming to today, Cyprus has made over time a lot of concessions in order to accommodate a solution of the Cyprus problem. This has not been possible because there is a maximalism on the Turkish side which would accept a solution that would turn Cyprus into a protectorate, and that we cannot accept. I mean, that's an indecent proposal. In relation to the existing relationships, tripartite agreements in the Eastern Mediterranean, which Cyprus is part, we would of course welcome Turkish participation in that, because we believe we cannot have a security architecture or a cooperation architecture in the Eastern Mediterranean without the participation of Turkey. At the same time, our request is that Turkey recognizes all countries and respects their right to exist, and also in line with international law. Now, if I go to other additional issues, other problems in the area, is that the Middle East is a volatile area. And what has happened in the past with domestic and international strife in the area, it has led to destabilization. So there are thousands of people from Middle Eastern countries that they want to go to the European Union. Cyprus is a country, and of course Greece is a country that we see these population movements, and Cyprus is a country that per capita, we are the first country in the Union with petitions for political asylum and all that. Our data and the information indicates that unfortunately there is a hybrid warfare taking place in which Turkey encourages people to come from North Africa and the Middle East to Cyprus, especially via the occupied northern part of Cyprus. And this is an issue that we have to address. At the same time, we understand that we must see the big picture. Cyprus is a country where we think that if foreign interventions in the island were to stop, we believe that we can have a model of coexistence between Greek Cypriot Christians and Turkish Cypriot Muslims in a way that we could be a model of coexistence that could be utilized accordingly in the broader Middle East. In the case of Cyprus, the religious issue, it's not a factor. What is a factor, it's the Turkish nationalism, the Turkish maximalist policies versus our will to resist what is taking place. Now, coming to the exploration of energy exploration, I think it will be very difficult for Cyprus to fully utilize its natural resources, its energy resources without Turkey's acceptance or tolerance of that. Over time, the Cyprus question has become, in one way or another, intractable. In my research work, in the last few years, I have tried to develop a model of an evolutionary process of trying to address the Cyprus question, an evolutionary process, a step-by-step approach, where there could be steps of cooperation without solving the Cyprus question. If we could go at a step at a time, we think there could be synergies for something positive. And in these synergies, I consider energy cooperation of fundamental importance, which could be encouraged by both the United States and the European Union. Okay? How do I perceive that? I mean, one of the steps which have to be taken is we must know where to explore. That requires a delimitation of Cyprus and Turkey's exclusive economic zone. One could say, how this company, if there is no recognition? Well, how did it happen in the case of Israel and Lebanon? The United States could take an initiative for that. And in this respect, there can be cooperation between Greek Cypriots and Turkish Cypriots on the one hand, and even between Cyprus and Turkey in a de facto situation. If we have some mutual economic benefits, if we could take steps to reduce mistrust and bitter feelings of the past and all that, I think we could go by a step-by-step approach. Now, in this respect, you may observe that Britain is one of the countries which strategically stands tall in favor of Ukrainian independence and all that. And I think in the case of Cyprus, Britain has also conventional obligations as being one of the guarantor powers. So that's what I'm talking about. We must have a policy which must be consistent. Today we talk about international law. In the case of Ukraine, yes, there must be universal respect for international law, whether it is Cyprus, Ukraine, former Yugoslavia, or Iraq, and so on. That's one way. If there is disrespect of international law and respect according to who violates it or not, I don't think we're going anywhere. And that is our perspective. Now, one of the issues that was brought to us is what happens after the Ukrainian war in the Eastern Mediterranean in relation to Russia's presence. Cyprus, as well as Greece, has followed the sanctions imposed by the European Union against Russia, and consequently there has been, there has been a deterioration of relations between Cyprus and Russia, and also between Greece and Russia. And now, on the other hand, Turkey has chosen not to pursue sanctions. So Russia maintains good relations with Turkey. It maintains its relations with Syria. And we would see the future outcome in relation to how this war in in Ukraine ends. Coming back to the issue of the Eastern Mediterranean, the Republic of Cyprus, being a small country, it wants to invoke international law all the time, but we understand that it is, as I said, it is not universally implemented. And we want to see how we can advance a situation where, in addition to international law, we can take some practical step which create win-win situations so that we get out of the stalemate and look at the future with more optimism. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, since Russia was mentioned towards the end of the speech, and since you brought forward the idea of energy being a platform to build up cooperation, while Russia is a troublemaker for not only Europe but also the world, and with due respect to all the countries, I believe that Russia would have liked to keep the good relations with Cyprus if Cyprus would have loved that too, and if there wasn't the EU crisis and the pushback towards limiting the Russian influence in Cyprus itself. That said, how is it that we can actually build up cooperation with regards to the energy sector in the region? And I refer to you first, Yossi, considering Israel is also an energy producer and has been involved in the Eastern Mediterranean energy discussions and energy cooperation for quite a while now.
So thanks again. First of all, let me remind you that 50 years ago we had the oil embargo in Israel. And ironically, nowadays Israel is now exporting oil, natural gas, and we change our position in the energy industry. But let me first divide between, when we're saying energy, we actually include natural gas and oil. From the Israeli perspective, we have a different view when it comes to natural gas and oil. When it comes to natural gas, Israel is now a very important player. It helps Israel in two fields. First of all, economically, we are selling natural gas. We're supplying energy to our own industry. We have lower natural gas prices compared to other states, and of course we are selling energy. We are selling natural gas to Egypt, Jordan, hopefully to maybe one day to Europe. Natural gas also helps us to promote diplomacy. Okay, since we're having a relation, we're selling natural gas to Egypt, Jordan, and of course we hope to sell it to Turkey. It's improve our status in the region. So we can consider it as energy diplomacy. So Israel uses it as a energy diplomacy, which is very important for Israel. So we see potential to collaborate in many ways when it comes to the natural gas industry. And I want to raise one potential initiative, which is creating a stock market, a stock exchange, like a commodity stock exchange, regional stock exchange. Right now, we don't have a benchmark for the natural gas prices. Actually, the prices are based on what's happening in the European and American stock exchanges. So I think it could be a very important step to create our own regional stock exchange for natural gas, which will reflect the weather, the needs, the production, and players could hedge on this market. When it comes to oil, we have a different point of view from the Israeli point of view, of course. We see now that the Iranians are selling more and more oil, and when it comes to the Iran, it means if the Iranians are selling more oil, and if they are in direct relations with the Saudis, it means that maybe in the future we'll see more cooperation in OPEC, and they could produce more oil than in the past. So the embargo, the American embargo, will be no longer efficient. And that means that Iran will earn more money, Hezbollah will get more money, and other terrorist organizations will get more money. So when it comes to energy, we divide between oil and natural gas. When it comes to natural gas, we see the potential for regional collaboration. In oil, we see it in a different perspective, as I said, but also I think there is a potential for collaboration.
Thank you very much. So for the oil markets and the way that they are shifted because of the current global economic war, and considering the perspective that and the influence that the oil markets have on natural gas, I would like to give the floor to Mitat, with regards to Turkey and Turkey's role as a growing hub in the energy market, and considering the idea that Yossi advanced with regards to a stock exchange market, how do you see this? So basically, we have oil on one side where the trends are going against the odds in the region and against cooperation in the wider Eastern Mediterranean region. We have natural gas where there is a platform for cooperation, and we have different ideas and different ways of working with Russia, including in the infrastructure side of things where Turkey is an actor currently. So how do you see cooperation in Eastern Mediterranean considering all this?
I would like to start to give the basic information. The total volume of gas in the Eastern Mediterranean is around 2.5 TCM, which is less than reserves of Azerbaijan. And then I have to give other two. I noted, in fact, it's less than half of the reserves of Nigeria. And it's almost 10% of Iran's resources, which means this is a limited resource. If you combine all those, actors in the East Med who has those natural gas, and this combined amount is sufficient enough to support regional consumption or needs. And how to support these resources to diversify European needs under the current strained conditions because of Russia, it's a choice. Therefore, those energy-related issues have some other effects. First of all, of course, those resources, we discussed the amount of resources and the natural gas discoveries. There is another issue of transportation. It's already almost resolved, this issue, because of Egyptian LNG facilities. And we have, or some regional actors have a dream of having a pipeline from the region up to Europe. It's out of, date. It's impossible to realize because of the prices, and there is no actor ready to invest because, this is the thing that I mentioned, the exclusion of Turkey. If you include Turkey in this equation, because of already established network, transportation network, we linked this network to Greece and therefore to Europe, and we have other networks, and Turkey is, from this perspective, a hub, a kind of a point to bring all those resources from north, south, east, and west and try to supply Europe already existing infrastructure. But again, what's the most important thing is how to bring the parties together with a political and financial will to create this hub. Oil and gas is an international product or commodities, therefore it's not up to only regional actors or Turkey to price it, and therefore it's a complicated issue. But how to move forward? First of all, we have to get together and to start to discuss. For example, this is the thing. If you demonize Turkey in this equation, you go nowhere because you have no starting point to discuss. For example, if you would like to discuss Cyprus issue, you shouldn't start from 1974. You should go back to the 1950s or 60s. Then everything gets much more complicated or hard to resolve. For example, if you are expecting the EU to play a role, or the UK, Turkey is a guarantor, is in the region as well. 1950 agreements, 55, 60 agreements, international community. This is not the starting point. But energy may play a role. How? To include all those actors, including Turkey, and to find some alternative ways how to cooperate. Then afterwards, all the regional actors may turn out to be a kind of a power to play a role in an energy market. For example, it's the case for Israel. Israel has its own national interest and national perspective regarding energy resources. Of course, Greece has its own, and Cypriots also have their right. Of course, this is the case. No one questions it. But you know, this is not the starting point, and we have many issues, delimitation-related issues, transportation-related issues, but all those issues necessitates a common perspective from the region with the, encouragement of the EU as well as the US. No objection. Turkey is trying to be part, and we are the ally of the Western world. This is the thing that I have to say, to internationalize the region from the perspective of financial, economic, and financial aspects of energy issues. And you know, Turkey is already part of it. And the second thing that I would like to say, Turkey is a huge consuming country, together with Germany, for example. This is the reason why Turkey is a partner country to Russia in this equation. And it's not fair to accuse Turkey from the perspective in the Black Sea-related issues or Russia-related issues. Turkey has a double standard. You know, Turkey is the first country, closed the straits, enacted Montreux Convention, and defined the issue as a war between the littoral states. Therefore, Turkey is doing its best to try to keep the balance in the region, try to prevent, to internationalize the disagreements between the actors. This is the perspective. Then the issue is that under the current strained conditions, we have a de-escalation in the Eastern Mediterranean. No need to flame this de-escalation. What we need is to get together to negotiate. And we have many negotiations, talkings between Turkey and Greece, and we are experienced enough to know each other. Turkey, Greece, Cypriots, Turks and Greek Cypriots, and Israel, of course. Let's try to use our, combined memories for the better future to cooperate on the energy. Energy is a chance for us to cooperate. And how? I don't know. The leaders get together and they need to decide on it.
That is true. So politics are primary for the discussions, for the cooperation. However, geography and economy are very much in there. With that, I give the floor to Symeon.
Antonia, thank you. First of all, I would like to say that my thoughts are entirely the thoughts of the Delphi Economic Forum, which is a private organization. We have nothing to do with any government, Greek or whatever. I think, dear Mitat, nobody wants to demonize Turkey. I think it is important if we want to find good rapport and cooperation in the region. I think we need to agree on the delimitation of the exclusive economic zones and the continental shelf. Greece did that with Egypt. We did that with Italy. Albania, we didn't agree, but we're going to the International Court of Hague. I think Greece is inviting Turkey that we go to the International Hague and make the delimitation of this. So if this happens, I think we are going to be closer. We're going to find ways, of working closely. And this is, I think, the best solution in my humble opinion. So definitely, as I said before, I'm optimistic, Antonia, and I'm not a pessimistic. Because
I'm actually counting on that. So,
yeah. So we have so many things that we can do together in the region. And Greece and Turkey as well, we have lived together for centuries. I mean, we worked very many times together. So I think the governments, because we speak about the governments, not about the governments need to find ways of resolving those two issues by international law, by the law of the sea, etc. So if this happens, in my view, I think the area, we're going to be open for any other cooperation in the region. This is my view.
Thank you very much. Well, there is a complexity of this region, obviously, of combining realities of geography, economics, and the layers, the multiple layers, I would say, of politics and international politics. So, Andreas, after the optimism in the room and the thought that we are actually, the thought and the opinion that I actually agree with, we have a de-escalation in the Eastern Mediterranean with regards to what's going on currently globally, considering that the Black Sea has become a war zone de facto at the moment. What are your thoughts? Are there reasons of optimism?
Well, let me address this complex issue with the facts on the ground. And I start with my Turkish colleague when we can discuss the Cyprus question from any year you want to take it. 63, 60s, 50s, 19th century, whatever time. I mean, it is convenient to me. And the other thing, Cyprus does not criticize Turkey in its foreign relations with Russia. Cyprus is a small country. It cannot ask any country what foreign policy to pursue. We are aware of our size. What we are criticizing, though, I'll tell you the double standard, is if I take the European Union. The European Union has imposed sanctions for Russian aggressions in Ukraine. Fair enough. How about for the continuing aggression in Cyprus, which is a member state of the European Union? So, and the same applies to the United States. I understand Turkey is a NATO member. As a matter of fact, the 74 crisis NATO had its hands on in relation to Turkey because it perceived Cyprus as a non-aligned, and to them there should have been a NATO solution to partition the island. We never wanted the partition of the island. It's unnatural for us. Okay, so, but we paid that price. Now, in relation to the double standards of Turkey, for about 100,000 Turkish Cypriots in Cyprus, Turkey has its demands that it has. But for millions of Kurds in Turkey, it would not even consider minority rights. Now, the other element, Cyprus is a country which is less than 10,000 square kilometers. Turkey is a country over 800,000 square kilometers, 80 times population. So Cyprus cannot be a security threat to Turkey. I mean, it's a joke. As a matter of fact, if you go through the mythology, Cypriots do not have a history of war and all that. As a matter of fact, if you are aware of Greek mythology, the goddess that was born in Cyprus was Aphrodite, which didn't have anything to do with wars, etc., etc. But for us, talking about optimism, we are aware of international issues, but at the same time we understand that Turkey is an existentialist threat for us. We believe that if there is a breakthrough in Cyprus, that could facilitate a breakthrough, better relations between Greece and Turkey as well. A de facto delimitation of the exclusive economic zone between Cyprus and Turkey can have a positive spillover effect between Greece and Turkey. Greece insists on international law. Turkey says we cannot only have international law, there are other realities as well. And I think there can be a convergence on that and to move forward. I think that's possible. Now, emotions aside, our history has taught us that we must be pragmatic, realists, and we have to always strive for a better outcome. Suffice to say the following. I recall myself in 1991 when I was working at the president's office when there was the invasion of Iraq to Kuwait and then the American intervention in Kuwait. Cypriots had thought, well, is the time that we are going to have the implementation of international law. I remember at the time I smiled and I shared with some people there, I said, Kuwait has oil, but Cyprus has olive oil, so it cannot be possible. Now, when we eventually had the discoveries of natural gas and oil, let me put it this way, President Kliridis, when first time, he was 93 to 203, when he heard there is oil and natural gas in Cyprus, and he says, oh no, please keep it aside, I don't want another Cyprus problem in the sea. He said that. Now, other presidents we came in, they thought they could utilize it. Now, for me, you cannot have energy exploration without Turkey coming into some form of an agreement in relation to what is taking place, a de facto that. Now, is that possible? I think it's possible if all parties involved have an incentive to cooperate. Cyprus is the first one to want to have such an attitude. I mean, if we have a breakthrough in which way it would be the beginning of the withdrawal of Turkish troops from Cyprus and economic benefits. You see, what's the difference between the Republic of Cyprus and the neighboring states of Russia? Neighboring states of Russia, they say we want an architecture in Europe without Russia. We Cypriots, although we feel the same way like those states towards Russia, we feel towards Turkey, we have the pragmatism to know that there cannot be a security architecture and cooperation architecture in the Eastern Mediterranean without Turkey. And we want to be pragmatic, to work with the US, the European Union, Britain, Greece, Turkey, Israel, to achieve that. So, yes, we have to strive for the better, despite difficult odds. I want to believe that if populism is pushed aside, and you see, we cannot change the past. It's impossible to change the past. But we can work for the present and the future. And that is my perspective, and I believe that we must work to take some little steps to move on. The condition is that this, I think, we could have positive developments in Cyprus that could spill over positively in the Greece-Turkey issues if Turkey eventually adopts the view that it has to respect the sacred right of all states in the area to exist.
Thank you very much. I actually see some optimism there, because being pragmatic means that you are up to work for some optimistic outcomes. And I share the same view as Symeon. We need to be optimistic in order to live in this world, especially now. That said, I'm very much optimistic that you have some questions now. So I see some hands. Thank you very much. We'll go from here, then, yes. Yes, sir.
Thank you. First of all, I appreciate your moderate, because very objective. But a question to you, Andreas. There was a plan, Annan plan in 2004, and Greek and Turkish leaderships agreed on resolving the Cyprus issue eternally. And suddenly, the Greek leadership propagated against Annan plan, and the community refused. So, is it a contradiction to refuse Annan plan? And second question, so sorry for this, there's another issue very important in the region, directly affecting the energy balance. It's Agratur and Nicosia. What happens if the UK decides to declare an exclusive economic zone to the south, dividing the Greek Cypriot exclusive economic zone or allegations, because now there happens another complexity? Thank you.
I think, if I may.
No, I think you started.
Yes, let me put it this way, the Annan plan. At the time, I worked very much against Annan plan as an activist, and if I had to do it again, I will do it. And I also want to share with you some second-track diplomacy issues that was involved. The Annan plan didn't come there to solve the Cyprus question. The Annan plan came there to facilitate Turkish relations with the European Union or that. The Annan plan satisfied all requests of Turkey and basically asked us to legitimize the outcome of '74. It was not the leadership who asked the people to vote no, it's the people who asked the leadership to go against it. Voting no, it was not emotional. Voting yes, it was emotional, buying a hope. Voting no, it was a realistic thing to do. No respecting citizen would sign a solution by which no serious country votes to dissolve itself for a new entity. No country would say that we would like to have a plan in which if let's say there is a crisis in the Middle East and Cyprus wants to use its territory for humanitarian aid to the Middle East, we had to ask the approval of Turkey. The Annan plan made us, we voted no because we thought the Annan plan would make it worse, the status quo, okay? That is what I'm saying, that after 1974, there was no plan which improved the status quo for us. Mediators thought and were asked to have an understanding for Turkish pride, to be pragmatic, and we said we will make all possible concessions, but one thing we cannot accept. We cannot accept to dissolve the Republic of Cyprus, and we cannot accept a plan which makes us worse off. So I want to be very blunt. No guilt feelings for voting no there. And there is another element. When France and Netherlands and Ireland votes no for a European constitution, it's okay. If Cyprus votes no, it's not okay. Look, you have to understand that Cyprus is a country member of the European Union and the European and the United Nations, and it is a small country, but it has to be respected accordingly. And what happened to Cyprus in '74, it's a shame for the international community and for tolerating it. What we perceived in '74, it was an aggression in which Cyprus was left alone. And we were told resolutions that the two communities should negotiate. What is happening with the Turkish Cypriot community? Turkish Cypriot community today is suffocated by Turkish settlers. And the Turkish Cypriot problem is what? On the one hand, they are not happy with this suffocation. On the other hand, they say, okay, can we trust the Greek Cypriots? It's up to them to decide. You know, Cypriot Greeks and the Republic of Cyprus has matured. Okay. So when we are given a plan, you know, voting yes, it's politically correct. If that political correctness is not to our interest, we will say no. And that's what we said. Okay. And what is this? Would you accept in Turkey a constitution which it would be a rotation presidency between a Kurd and a Turk citizen? Why would you want us to accept something that you would not even ever consider? And if somebody suggests in Turkey what you're requesting in Cyprus, he would find himself in jail. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Yes, sir, please. And then we'll go forward.
Thank you very much. I'm the Turkish ambassador in Bucharest. I think we all have olive oil, so that's a good common point. I've served 2 years in Athens as a deputy of the ambassador, some of the best times of my life. So I've always enjoyed the commonalities between our peoples. I love Greece, actually. You wouldn't hear from a Turkish diplomat, but I really do like it. Yes, we have many friends. I think the solutions are there with Greece. I think it's easier because it has been talked so many times. The blueprints are ready. What's necessary is political will on both sides. I think after the earthquake, there's a new wave of rapprochement. Let's hope that this will take us to a much more positive place. You refer to international law. We fully second to this. International law and even the law of the sea is also important. And these very international law provisions, they indicate that in special circumstances, such as in our seas, if there's agreement, fine. If there is no agreement for some special circumstances, discuss and dialogue. This should be exactly what we're doing. On some of these issues, we don't have an agreement, a full agreement, and it's easy. It should be easy. If I left these issues to two businessmen, one from Greek, one from Turkish, two lawyers with them, they would come up with a solution in the morning, trust me. 5 minutes, yes. So the solutions are there, we should do. So thank you for your positivity. On Mr. THEOPHANOUS, THEOPHANOUS. Look, I love you. I love you. I love all my brothers from other mothers like you. So, and I think you said a few, couple of positive things. Let's start from there. Bitter feelings of the past. Bitter feelings of the past, you referred. I think we should get over that. Second, you said also work for present and future. I completely support that. But please tolerate what I will say. The international community did not react to what happened in Cyprus as it reacted to what happened in Ukraine. Because we have, maybe it's very difficult for you to understand this, to accept this, but for the Turkish Cypriots, they felt that they were being eradicated, their presence, only a few years after the agreements that established the Republic of Cyprus then, they felt that they were being eradicated politically and even physically. So what you say, aggression, is for us intervention as directly stipulated in international law. It says collectively or individually, all these three countries, they have the right to intervene. For us, this is what happened. I'm sure it's 100% not possible for me and you to agree on this. And you will make some counter arguments. So from that, we will leave that disagreement and try to approach today. In 2004, it was not the Turkish side, the Turkish Cypriots who said no. And for you, maybe there is some legitimacy. It's not a good plan. I don't think any plan will be good enough for you, in my personal opinion. So when a couple, they used to live together, but then, okay, they fight, Turkish Cypriots, Greek Cypriots. So there are two options, right? Either you negotiate and start living together as two equals, sharing power. But okay, if one says that, no, I don't want to share any power, this is not acceptable for me, either live like this or we don't share power. Okay, so if this is not good enough for the Turkish Cypriots, which is not, because they want to be equals on the island, where actually they could live forever in peace, if they agree to that. Okay, if this is not possible, they say, we want divorce. Yes, two civilized couple, if they cannot agree, they divorce. Oh, no, I will not divorce as well. I want you to suffer forever. This is also, in my opinion, not the most positive approach. So if we agree to negotiate, let's live together, Turkish Cypriots, Greek Cypriots. If they are not able, let's divorce, please.
Before we get this into a conflict resolution moderating act, I would like to give the floor to the next person that actually has a question, and then we will take rounds at the panel. Thank you very much. Yes, you will be able to respond, and I think you will be here for the entire day to respond to these challenges as well. I have a feeling. So, there we go, sir.
It seems like we are asking too many questions to Andreas. But I will also ask a question concerning the Eastern Mediterranean. Andreas talked about the energy resources as Turkey is trying to prevent the Cyprus acts to benefit from natural resources of Eastern Mediterranean. I can say that there is a quite sensitive stability in the Eastern Mediterranean at the moment because, you know, although there are delimitation agreements in the Eastern Mediterranean, not all the parties actually recognized the legality of these international boundaries. So that's why there are still very sensitive processes. In such a circumstance, is it not good to, try to establish a forum in the Eastern Mediterranean covering all the countries surrounding the Eastern Mediterranean rather than trying to establish a bloc against certain countries? I'm asking this question over an experience, actually. Greece and some other countries tried to establish the EastMed project, excluding only Turkey. If you try to establish a bloc against another Eastern Mediterranean country, we have a very good experience that it does not really work. So it's time to, is it not time to establish a forum covering all these Mediterranean countries, trying to get them work together rather than try to exclude some of them? I think that's a quite significant question that we should think about, because we have a very near and very strong experience on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other question before I give the floor? Yes. I just want to make sure that we get questions as well to the panel. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Valentin Berca from Berecapa Systems Company from Craiova. I have a short question, but not optimistic. Taking in consideration the triangle Russia, Iran, Syria, taking in consideration Shahed drones sold by Iran to Russia, taking in consideration Bayraktar drones sold by Turkey to Russia, and taking in consideration pressing of United States to Israel to sell Iron Dome to Ukraine, and last but not least, taking in consideration Syria as proxy battleground of Iran. The question is, could become Syria a new proxy battleground of Russia against Turkey and Israel? Thank you.
Thank you. So we have two questions for Andreas. I've seen Symeon wanting to say something as well. And a question for the panel, for the entire panel. I think this is very relevant for the region currently. Andreas, do you want to start, or?
Whatever. Cyprus is too small to exclude Turkey. At the time when Cypriot leaders were signing agreements with Egypt, Israel, and Greece, if you have seen their statements, they said, we would like Turkey to join us with the understanding that Turkey recognizes our sacred right to exist and respects international law. So, I mean, it would be rational for Cyprus to exclude anybody. Cyprus is a small country. It's not a big power. So, excluding Turkey, it's not an option for us. We don't think like that. Okay? And I think if such is the feeling among Turkish people, I think that's a misperception. It doesn't exist. Now, in relation to the divorce, let me put it this way. At the end of the day, yes, people have to live together. They have to decide whether they want to live. But in case in Turkey the Kurds don't want to live with you, would you give them independence and land? You would not do that. You put them in prison if they demand such a thing. Now, in the case of Cyprus, I think that Greek Cypriots and Turkish Cypriots have matured. And if they were to deal with the issue alone, there would be better outcomes. I'm convinced about that. There is another element. Yes, in the past considered that they had the right for self-determination to unite with Greece. Yes, we had that. In 1968, 67-68, President Makarios, the leader of the Enosis movement, said, we have to move toward what is feasible and not what is desirable. And he was very brave to say that. And he worked for it. Please note the following. On 13th of July, 74, 13th of July, 74, Orhan Altikashti and Mikhail Dekleris, a Greek and a Turkish constitutionalist, together with Mr. Kliridis and Dektash, they agreed to a framework for the solution of the Cyprus question, that it was to be ratified on the 16th of July. But we had the coup on the 15th of July for things that they didn't have to do with the Cyprus problem. It was a vendetta between Athens and Nicosia because Makarios was overshadowing the Greeks, the Greek leadership. And most Greeks look up to him and not to their own petty generals. And they gave the excuse to Turkey to invade Cyprus. Now, last night I was not preparing for this today's session. Last evening, I'm finishing another book, Cyprus Question from 1960 to today and the uncertain tomorrow. And last evening I was reading what happened in the Geneva talks in 74, before the new onslaught. You know, it reminded me practices of the past. And I don't want to repeat what I said. I don't want to repeat it. Now, I would say that if Cypriot Greeks and Cypriot Turks could negotiate freely, I think there would be a positive outcome. I have Turkish Cypriot colleagues coming to my office to do work with me, and they confide certain things, and then when they leave my office, they tell me, Andreas, please don't quote my name. We would have serious problems.
Okay.
So,
just to make sure that the others have the chance to also answer their question.
I can stop. So, I would end with this. We cannot change the past. But it's important to work for tomorrow. And I don't think it's possible to find solutions in 24 hours of problems that there are different narratives, bitterness, etc. I believe that there can be a modest, step-by-step approach to improve things on the ground, to build some confidence, to reduce mistrust. And it doesn't happen over 24 hours. It requires courage, hard work. It's difficult, but I think we must work and try that approach.
Okay, and I think at the Bucharest
yes.
Forum, we will begin
I
this
think
process of step-by-step approach of discussing throughout the day on this issue.
And I can share you I have a policy paper in English that they released a few months ago which discusses this idea of an evolutionary process. I could share it with you.
Thank you very much. I'd like to see that paper
Thank
as
you
well.
too.
Yossi, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. So I have to admit it, the first time in my life I'm feeling like Switzerland. Usually it's us and the Palestinians sitting here fighting. So I wish next year you will sit together and Ukrainians and Russians will sit next to you.
That's a good start. I mean, in
Yes,
Bucharest.
yes. So I have to tell you that regarding Iron Dome, Iron Dome is a game changer in Israeli security perspective. And you saw it in the last operation last week. That actually, beside one rocket that hit actually my parents' house near Weizmann Institute, Weizmann University, there was no damage to Israel, which is a game changer. Okay. However, I assume that many countries are hoping to get the Iron Dome, but the problem is, first of all, I think they need to be trained to the specific geography. And the other problem is that we have now few fronts, new fronts. Until, I would say, a few months ago, it was mainly concentrated in the center, in the south of Israel. Now we have, it's not a new front, but it's becoming a more dangerous front from, of course, Hezbollah and the northern front. So I think Israel will need the Iron Domes for its domestic use. However, if you look on the Israeli press in the last few days, you can see there is a change from the Israeli point of view regarding what is happening in Ukraine, and there is a warning. This is how I read it, okay, from the Israeli government that in case the Russian will supply more weapons to Iran, I see the change in the Israeli point of view in the government, that Israel might consider more seriously supplying weapon to Ukraine. Okay, not attacking weapon, but a defense, of course, defense. But I see how it comes. Okay, I see there is more potential right now that Israel will supply weapon to Ukraine because of what's happening between the relations between Russia and Iran.
Thank you. Dear Antonia, I think we are closing optimistically. Of course, after myself, we are going to cover everything. And it seems that the fundamental element of the relations between and among the regional actors are perceptions and misperceptions. We are agreed. I agree also that we do not need to stuck with the past history. We cannot change it, but we can shape our future. It's in our hand, and we have an experience enough to work together and to move forward. What we need is to develop a kind of a win-win scenario for all the parties, including Turkey, without excluding Turkey in any schemes. Energy, delimitation, transportation, regional cooperation to fight against terror, climate change, energy cooperation on renewables. We have many possibilities in our hand. What we need is a political will, a kind of a win-win scenario, and how to converge our interests. This is the idea. Without getting together and to create a kind of a regional, meeting or conference to deal with those issues, it's impossible to move forward. We cannot give ourselves to the external powers or the other actors. Of course, each and every country in the region have some special relations in terms of security, energy, and the other aspects. We need to utilize those resources and, partnerships, but what we need to work together. The other thing is to need to develop or extend diplomatic front. We need to work and discuss and de-escalate. This de-escalation is not enough, and we have a fertile ground to de-escalate further and toning down the controversial, statements by the parties, all the political leaders, of course, is an important. Of course, Cyprus is a cooperation imperative for all those actors. But, we are experienced enough, as I said. We can move forward. And therefore, I am an optimistic person in terms of future of the region. And the Cyprus, the island itself, is at the heart of the Eastern Mediterranean, but I should remind you that Turkey is the longest coast or shorelines in the Eastern Mediterranean as well, and can contribute very positively if you engage with Turkey. This is the case. For the Syria, it's a totally different issue, but it's a Mediterranean issue as well. Turkey has a border, the longest border with Syria and Iraq as well. And last 3 decades, we have not only Syria and Iraq as a border country, we have the big powers as well. The US, Russia is there. And what Turkey is trying to do is to prevent the region from being a proxy. And you see active Turkish involvement militarily in the region, but to fight against terror, whether region located, religious, or extremist, but the great powers are dealing with the region, and how to prevent it? Through cooperation again. And this is the reason why Turkey is trying to defend its own security interests. This is very legitimate. Of course, the venue is the international law, sovereignty of country, not only Turkey, but the other countries, and to keep the borders as it is. These are the pillars. But for the trade, maybe you may follow the next panel. My colleagues will be there. They are experts. They will share the information with you. Therefore, let me stop here to save the time.
Thank you very much. Yossi, I think it is a great idea about this stock exchange. I must tell you, because we are people of action, I will follow up on this. It will be a session in the next Delphi forum. I promise you'll join us. and I will bring you in touch with the right people in Greece so that we can discuss this. On the other hand, I enjoyed the conversation, and I will invite my colleagues to the Brussels Forum about East Med on October 12th, and I think we can continue this cooperation. Two last points. One, I said already that I hope Greece and Turkey will resolve the issues of the exclusive economic zones. And I think, dear Mitat, perhaps another issue is that, unfortunately, the majority of the Turkish leadership questions the sovereignty of the Greek islands. So I think now that a new era is coming with the new governments, if I think we find, the momentum on all of this, I think the relationship will be by far better. So this is what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I believe that we managed to close this panel on an optimistic note, and not only, we managed to basically share a discussion which, can be passionate. And I hope that the discussions will continue on this topic and many others as the day moves forward. Thank you very much for coming again. Thank you for your thoughts.